Good afternoon, y'all. Great to be with you. Brian Lindley, I've been with Popeyes coming up on 2 years. This is my fourth restaurant job in my career. I started out at McDonald's when I was 15, working the drive-through and breakfast back in the kitchen. I spent a summer in college as a bartender at Red Lobster. That was fun. That was quite an experience. I spent a decade at Chick-fil-A. And then came here to RBI and Popeyes. And so excited to be with you all today, lead our real estate, design, construction, franchising, business development teams. A little bit about Popeyes, just to share with y'all. I don't know how much y'all know about the sort of the history of Popeyes. Been around over 50 years, founded in 1972 by Al Copeland Sr. Originally as Chicken on the Run, then converted to Popeyes, not related to Popeyes the Sailor Man, actually. What the story is that it was the Jimmy Popeyes Doyle, the character from the French Connection, that Al Copeland named the restaurant after. Into the 80s, expanded into Canada, opened up our 500th restaurant there. Into the 2000s, got into Australia and Asia Pacific. 2017, fast forward there, acquired by Restaurant Brands International, who is who our parent company is today. And that includes Tim Hortons, Firehouse Subs, and Burger King as well. So those four brands. 2019, the chicken sandwich wars. I was at Chick-fil-A when that happened, so that was a fun little turnaround for me to now be on the other side. But yeah, pretty wild days there. And thankfully, we figured out how to keep chicken sandwiches in stock now, so that's really positive. And then into early 2020s, expansion into a lot of the rest of Europe, South Asia, Mexico, China. And then 2024 last year was our very first Super Bowl commercial. I don't know if y'all saw that, but that was Ken Jeong, also known as Mr. Chow, if there's any Hangover fans in the room. Anyways, that was an awesome moment for us. First Super Bowl commercial, made for really tough comps this first quarter of this year, as you can imagine. But anyways, that's our history. Today we have 3,500 restaurants across the U.S. and Canada. And so definitely a lot of restaurants, but still plenty of growth for us. Let's talk a little bit more about chicken and some of the complexities about what we're dealing with and how that's driven our format strategy over the last year and a half. Fried chicken to do well is really, really tough. It's easy to screw it up. There are a lot of different things and this doesn't even include just the protein parts of the chicken that are also easy to mess up. But really good fried chicken is difficult to execute well. And all of these things, if you've ever tried to make it at home, you probably have experienced on your own. But these are some of the challenges of being a handmade fried chicken brand, and we certainly deal with this. What we also believe in is that the chicken is marinated in our restaurants. It's breaded and battered by hand, and it's got a distinctive shatter crunch. But it's really difficult, like I said, to do well, to replicate. And then on top of that, for us as a chain, we've added complexity to it through the design of our restaurants over time. So I'm going to get into that a little bit just to talk about that complexity. But we've definitely got some challenges that we've had to overcome in terms of our format strategy there. In terms of design, we've got a legacy of 50 years worth of restaurants. And one of the challenges we have from a brand and an imaging standpoint is even some of our newer restaurants. So you go back 5-6 years from today, even our newer, quote unquote, newer restaurants, they kind of look old. They look dated. The mustard yellow hasn't really aged quite as well from a competitive standpoint. So we've got a lot of restaurants that aren't really actually that old, but they kind of look a lot older than they are. On top of that, we've got dated kitchens through those 50 years. So we've got a handful of kitchen challenges, one of which is we have 7 distinctly different kinds of kitchens. And so that is challenging from an operational standpoint, but also from a format, from a reinvestment standpoint, super challenging. And so summarizing sort of where that has led us to, it is chicken is difficult. Our restaurants, while relatively new, they've got a huge range of images. And then our kitchens themselves are not easy to run. And so the problem that we also run into is you're hand making chicken and you're frying chicken. If you run out in our restaurants today, it's 14 minutes for a new batch. And so if you're a customer and you run out of chicken for that customer, you're gonna be waiting a long time. And so that's not a great customer experience. So we've got a lot of issues that we've had to like work through in terms of how to address that. And the way that we've thought about is really from a customer perspective. So we want to think about how do customers make decisions. We think about the customer funnel from consideration to converting to trial, and then hopefully to captivating and retaining those customers. So we've built an investment strategy around these three pillars of how do we attract new customers, how do we get them to try our restaurants, and then how do we keep them with a great experience. And so we started with what we call the easy to run operating system. Basically, is pretty on a slide, but it really is a revolutionizing action on our restaurants. So essentially, what it does is it creates back to front single line for production. It does pretty simple and things that you all would probably think are very basic, but things like sticky labels to ensure order accuracy, an expediter at the end of the line to ensure that that order is packed properly. It's got kiosks integrated into the restaurant. And so there's elements of it that are both digital, but also just simple process and operating system things that completely change the way our restaurants run. It also includes different pieces of equipment for us that allow for longer hold times with actually better end results on the chicken. And so we reduce our outages where we're simply out of chicken. So super critical there. So huge effort there. We have 230 of these so far in our restaurants. We'll add several hundred more this year and eventually roll it out through the entire chain as part of a reinvestment strategy. But seeing some really great results from that to start. But it is also a challenge because you've got 50 years of restaurants of team members and franchisees used to doing things their way. Now you're changing the operating system on them. So there's definitely change management. There's a lot of training that has gone into this and a lot of lessons along the way to figure that out. In terms of visual contrast, this is our core asset, our new restaurant, our freestanding restaurant's about 2,500 square feet. Really clear, distinctive change from our historical legacy image. This is our North Star for visual image going forward. Um, as you can see, that's a big transformation from our old image to our new image. So this is a big, big factor of why we've asked franchisees to invest in remodeling their restaurants, because we believe that this is a very significant exterior change to customers to help signal that there's something different about the restaurant. And if you pair that with the kitchen improvements and hopefully a better overall experience, you're going to bring those guests in and you're going to retain them through a great experience in the restaurant. On the interior, here's a rendering of what the interior change can look like. And again, we have a lot of restaurants on the left that really aren't that old, but that's a super dated image itself. It looks like it's 10, 15, 18 years old. But the transformation is really clean and really simple. Using our signature orange as a clear like pop and color change there. Here's an actual before and after that kind of shows the transformation there. Again, super simple, but visually really clear and clean, and we feel like it is really good bang for the buck for our franchisees because they're getting something that looks and feels a lot different for not a massive amount of capex there. Um, so those are the first two pieces, which is redo the kitchen, like completely change the operating system of the kitchen through easy to run, and then invest in modernizing the exterior and then in a lot of pieces of the interior, modernizing that. And the third piece of the growth strategy for us is really around the formats of the new restaurants themselves. And so we've got two formats that we're leveraging today that we haven't had in the past. The first one is a small box drive-through. It's a drive-through only, basically. It's about 1,600 square feet. Nothing super revolutionary here other than it's off-premises focus. So it's obviously heavily leveraging the drive-through. It's got a digital pickup window on the front. The key for this is that it can fit on a half an acre for us. So we're in that space where we're looking for about a 3/4 acre property or so typically. Um, This allows our franchisees to get a little bit more aggressive on the pieces of property they can go after, and hopefully not make compromises on site selection. Because that's one of the things that that I've noticed, at least in the year and a half that I've been with the company, is sometimes franchisees will make compromises on site, either through desire to go faster on their development or cost. And so if you don't have options for them to execute a different value proposition, they're going to continue to do that. So that's fine, and you can get a good start that way. But if you really want to build long-term sales, you've got to be in the places that are really going to drive convenience for customers. So um, this is an important piece of that for us, to make sure that franchisees have an additional tool to really drive that opportunity to build those sales. The intention here is it's similar average unit volumes to our regular freestanding restaurants. So ROI proposition here is really strong. And then our second one, we affectionately call the pop-in, inside the Popeyes corporate there. This is a digital end line for us. So similar idea, a different kind of asset, but allowing franchisees some real flexibility. So this is a shopping center asset. This is very similar to what a lot of Wingstop is doing. I don't know if there are Wingstop people in the room or not today. But this is an opportunity for us to get into shopping centers with a non-drive-through asset, and really drive that off-premises business. It can be laid out like you see here with 10 seats, but this is a very clear delineation between off like mobile order pickup and third-party delivery on the left, and then walk-in kiosk on the right. So really trying to separate the two channels of customers, give them their own space, and then allow for a little bit of seating there if people want to come in on their lunch and sit down. This again is an opportunity for us and our franchisees to not have to make a compromise and go sort of outside the trade area. This tool, this restaurant, can get them into the trade area, allow them to really create convenience and build the brand in ways that we're just not today. Um, so super excited about this. The first one of these is going to open in about a month in Madison, Wisconsin. First one. So if anybody's from Wisconsin, would love for you to go and check that out. Many more of those to come. Um, but in totality, we put all those things together, and we feel like that's the platform that's going to really create growth for us. So we opened about 162 restaurants last year in the U.S. and Canada. We'll do about the same this year. We will renovate approximately 200 or so restaurants this year as well. All of these pieces are going to go into that strategy to create that kind of flexibility for franchisees and really drive not only convenience, but frankly ROI, because as you all know, the costs aren't getting cheaper, and we have gone through value engineering exercises like I'm sure a lot of you have. But all that's really done is at best sort of kept pace with the growth of all those costs. And so creating these options for our franchisees has been really, really critical to give them the ability to grow in different ways than they certainly have today. Okay, so those are the formats that we've got there. I think that's all I've got. So I'll go ahead and just open it up for questions if anybody else has any questions. Yes. Yeah. So Pop-In is 1,400 square feet on average. It really depends on the space, to be honest. 20 to 40 feet ish. It depends. Yeah. Yeah, we can be flexible, and I think obviously the seating we can pull that out if we need to. We'd prefer to have the seats in there, but then seating implies bathrooms, and so you got to be cognizant of that too. We really all of that is built around the easy to run kitchen. So as long as we can get the kitchen in and we can create a digital experience on the front of the house, we're satisfied that it'll create the right experience for customers. Yes. We have, yeah. We've been that's been in tests for about a year now. We've seen a few things. The first thing we've seen is really good improvement in order accuracy. That's been the biggest thing right away. I think from a team member standpoint, it's been a better experience. In terms of later labor savings, we haven't seen a ton yet. And I would say the same thing with kiosks. I don't know what y'all's experiences are with kiosks, but there's definitely check average improvement from kiosks. We think the labor savings are going to come. What we see for a lot of restaurants is that first 6 months is really challenging because it really is completely changing the way the kitchen runs for what they're used to. Um, and so you've got to give them time to get used to that and sort of build in the efficiencies, go through some of the peaks and valleys of them making sure that they're using the right tools that we provide for them and not sort of going back to old habits of when to drop chicken and when to do the things that their old systems would tell them to do this, but we want them to follow the, digital drop charts, for example, are part of what we're doing. Um, so we haven't quite seen it yet, but we know it's coming. And so we feel really confident about that. Yeah. Yeah. So we have really two layers of capex. We've got for our new restaurants, we have a reimage program that's going to be about $350,000. Our like mid-level remodel, standard remodel is going to be in the 750 range. We really were intentional to try to um, be very thoughtful about how do we mix the right amount of change visually on the restaurants, make sure that we're putting in these functional things, but also be aware of the capital limitations that franchisees are dealing with right now. Because we don't want to kill growth. We want our franchisees to still be investing in new restaurants, but we know that interest rates are still quite high, that all of the costs built in are challenging. So we really, really worked really hard to make sure that it was the most critical elements in that scope to get the most bang for the buck, real ROI. Yes, back there. Yeah, same hurdle rates, honestly, and we try to target the same top line sales too, to be honest. So obviously that drives a much better ROI for the digital assets. We use the same hurdle threshold, the cash threshold for hurdles, no matter what. But we really do believe that if you're in the right trade areas, you're going to grow long-term sales. And so even without a drive-through, we believe that there's an opportunity to path to be like really viable. And then the beautiful thing about that is if you are in a great trade area, um, and if let's say a freestanding site does become available 5, 8, 10 years down the road, now you've got some flexibility to actually take a risk to get into what is probably going to be a much higher rent, a much riskier all-in deal, but you will have a base of sales. You'll have confidence in what that restaurant could do. You'll have a team already in place. Like there's a certain psychological hurdle there for franchisees that they'll already be halfway over, and so we really see like long-term vision and opportunity there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How hard was it to go from Chick-fil-A, which they kind of command and control, to a franchise system with these wacky franchisees out there? Kind of, was it a? It seemed like it'd be really hard. Was it as hard as it looks, or what's your take on
Yes.
that?
Yes, to go from control to influence. Like that's really what it is. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I wanted to join a global multi-branded franchise business. Yeah, 100%. Like we are in a position of really, administering standards and design practices and everything that a franchisee pays for. But at the end of the day, a lot of it's influence and trying to convince them that these new things that I just showed you are worth investing in, worth taking the chance on. And so, yeah, it is definitely a very different business. Night and day. It's been, yeah, yeah, a lot of sleepless nights. It's been a ton of fun for me. Good career growth, personally. Yeah, yeah.